Hi there, my name is Charles East. Well, my album is called Dislocated. It's really just a collection of songs that I chose, that I wanted on the album, sort of telling a very loose story of this person's process of dislocation, really. It's not a personal record as such, even though, the impetus for all the songs came from a personal place. I choose not to see it as something that's entirely quote-unquote confessional, because I change things in the songs in order to make it more dramatic or to make it feel more concentrated, to create that sort of whichever atmosphere I want to create. So yeah, other than that, there isn't really any specific concept to the album. The songs were not written in a specific order, to tell a story. It's just songs that I chose for the album. Some of the songs are, over a decade old, like It Holds My Viscera, I wrote in 2013. And then the other songs, were written whenever. Some of them were written in 2023, some of them were written in the beginning of 2024 while I was still busy recording the album. So yeah, I just chose the songs and ones that I wanted to experiment with and ones that I thought would fit into this sort of very loose narrative of the album, if you can even call it that. Yeah, so the writing process, like I said, the songs, some of them are really old, some of them are a bit more recent, and the writing process of any song can be, at the same time extremely wonderful and also extremely harrowing, because, as a songwriter, you sometimes end up working on a song, spending hours and hours writing something, and then very little of it ends up working, so yeah, so sometimes it can be quite an interesting process where it takes months to finish a song when you just can't seem to quite crack it, but the feeling of when you have cracked it is probably one of my favorite feelings in the world. Yeah, so the writing process is, I don't really know what to say about it, because, like I said, I didn't sit down and decide that I'm going to write this album. So it's just songs I had that I chose for this album. I was actually thinking about this yesterday, that, when you go into songwriting mode, you're not necessarily always actively composing, in front of a piano, for instance, or whatever. It's sort of this very strange just mood that you go into, and I could be lying in my bed staring at the ceiling, and but the song is sort of whirring or buzzing away in your head, and then all of a sudden you just get an idea and you get up and run to the piano or whatever. It's a very interesting kind of mental state that you go into when you're busy composing. But like I said, it can take months to complete a song for me. Well, when it comes to gear, just at the studio where I record, we used the drum set, live drums with bass and guitar. I recorded, which is obviously important to me, the piano for the album. I always record in a church in Ladysmith, where the studio is. So we track the piano in the church, and then we go back to the studio and finish up the rest of the songs. We do vocal tracks and all the other instruments. I recorded quite a lot of samples for this album beforehand. I had quite a detailed plan with each song before I went into the studio, because the studio is about an hour away from where I live. So when I go there, I have to, I have to be well prepared so that I know what we are sort of aiming for the day that I am in the studio. But yeah, I recorded a lot of samples, vocal samples, I suppose, that I would then just play with afterwards, stretch it out or change the pitch, and then just general sort of banging and scraping noises that I also edited afterwards, just to create something that would hopefully be unique to each song and unique to the album. Yeah, which is obviously not a new idea, but it's a good idea, I think, to try and come up with your own samples and your own sound that you're aiming for. So that's something I enjoyed that quite a lot, actually. When I was preparing each song, I would go out and test different materials, to see what sound I can get out of it. Obviously, always editing it afterwards so that you end up with some sort of strange noise, something that hopefully sounds good and interesting. And so there's a lot of that. And then also there's cello on one track played by 𝐂𝐀𝐀𝐑𝐋𝐄𝐒. She's a musician from Cape Town, from the band 𝐂𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐋𝐄𝐒. And then, of course, the wonderful, divine 𝐂𝐂𝐒, who I have now become friends with, does guest vocals on a song called Resting in My Blood, which I am extremely pleased with. Eva and I started talking because she invited me to play with her in Europe this year, 2025. And so while we started, so we started talking basically, and I asked her if this must have been, I can't remember when this was, September, October last year. I asked her if she would be interested in doing guest vocals on one of the songs. And she said yes. I sent her the track, and a couple of hours later, she sent through what you hear on the song at the moment. Yes, it's just brilliant, and I'm extremely, extremely pleased. The album was recorded in Ladysmith in South Africa, at a studio called Blue Room Studios, owned by Joe Ellis. He also played drums, guitar and bass on the album, except for 2 tracks where the drums were played by Christian Burgess. He produced the album as well, and mixed and mastered. I don't know if there are any quirky or fun anecdotes, not that I can recall, just general things that happen when you're recording. But I am really sort of pathetically panicky, I suppose, or just buzzing when I have to record, because I find the process really wonderful, but also quite stressful, just because I want to I want to get it right. I want to make sure that, you know, what we're doing on that day is what, as close to what I hear in my head as possible, because it can be difficult for me to translate to the person, you know, that has to work on the album, to try and describe to them what I want, or yeah, to try and describe what I hear in my head, you know, with the proper vocabulary. And so that's always a bit of a challenge for me, but I think I've become better at it now. Hopefully, I don't know, but yeah. When it comes to gigs, I have not really been performing an awful lot. I had two live performances in 2023. The one was in May in 𝐂𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐋𝐄𝐒 in South Africa, in this beautiful old church, which is now the museum in 𝐵𝐵𝐶𝐿. My friend invited me to go and play there, and so I did. And then the other performance I did in 2023 was at the Lobby Theatre in Cape Town. I was invited to be a guest performer with the Macabre Ensemble, who every year during the South African Horror Fest, they have a live soundtrack performance to an old silent movie. So it was The Fall of the House of Usher in 2023. And yeah, we did a live soundtrack performance. Favorite band, artist, the great, I don't know, Maria Callas is, I've always sort of, it's a bit mawkish and a bit twee and yucky to say it, but she's the love of my life, really. And when it comes to music, I suppose, and just generally, my father played her to me when I was very young, and yeah, I've been obsessed with her ever since. I sort of feel like we're involved in some way, and I just think she's brilliant. Then Diamanda Galas. This is not a secret. I am a huge admirer of her work, her piano work, her vocal work, her intellect, her humor. Yeah, I just think she's great, and she is definitely an influence. 𝐂𝐄𝐒, absolutely. She's well, now I know that she's just funny and wonderfully strange and kind, but I love her music as well. Obviously, her solo work, I think Damnation, Salvation is one of my favorite albums ever, and also Shadow Project, that the band she had with Ross Williams. Christian Death is another one of my favorite bands. Only Theatre of Pain, particularly that album, and yeah, the Ross Williams Christian Death. Then, you know, a whole host of bands that I grew up listening to in the 90s. Probably the first time that I experienced music that was just completely different and was Tori Amos's Little Earthquakes, which my sister brought home, must have been 94, 93 or 94, I forget. And the cassette tape. And yeah, so I listened to Tori a lot. 𝐂𝐀𝐒𝐓, Nine Inch Nails, you know, all the great 90s stuff. But there are a lot of other influences that I feel sort of breathing into my neck. Some of who, you know, 𝐂𝐀𝐒𝐒, I don't, you know, I never want to talk about him because, you know, I butcher his name, but he was a great musician and very interesting and experimental and beautiful music. So Gnaw Their Tongues is someone else I always mention as well because I love the brutality in his music. Yeah, I don't know, there's so much and I can probably go on for quite a while if I had to really start thinking about it. So let's just leave it at that. So if I could have written any song, there are a few that I can think of. Birds of Death by 𝐂𝐀𝐀𝐑𝐋𝐄𝐒 that she wrote. I think it's a great song, and Lying Deep by The Shadow Project. It's a great song by Screaming Jay Hawkins called I Hear Voices that I really like. Maybe, you know, Rid of Me, 𝐂𝐀𝐒𝐓. I like that entire album actually. It's such a great album. And yeah, I don't know. That's it for now. So this is a bit embarrassing, but I don't really know or actively listen to a lot of South African bands. I know Sonia and her husband from the band Terminatrix. I got to know them in 2023 when they invited me for their Horror Fest performance. And I really like Terminatrix's music. I think they're a great band. So I can mention them because I do actually listen to the music. I did mention 𝐿𝐿𝐿 from Thylacine, and I've listened to, you know, what is available of theirs, and I really like their sound. I think they're a great band. But other than that, no other names of bands that I can think of at the moment, unfortunately. I haven't listened to the entire Brucia catalogue, unfortunately, but I remember listening to the Hegemony album that I thought was really great. Feed Them Death and Ultio released albums last year that I listened to. That was great. The Mouth Wound album that Brucia released was great. I really liked that one as well. I can't think of anything else at the moment. What am I passionate about other than music? You know, I really like reading, even though last year, 2024, I only read 2 books, but generally speaking, I like reading, and it's definitely something that I keep myself busy with. And also just then doing general sort of research if I'm, you know, when I'm busy writing songs or if I'm watching a film or whatever, I'm a compulsive pausing the film and then going to read about stuff kind of person. So yeah, I suppose reading, and I don't really have other hobbies as such. I mean, I don't do stamp collecting or anything like that. I like antiques and beautiful things, I suppose, but that's not really a hobby. That's just decorating your house. So. Yeah, so this is an interesting question, but I'm just going to answer it very briefly. If I have to choose one album, it would be Medea, the live performance from 1958 at the Dallas Opera, starring Maria Callas as Medea. A film, I always mention Vampire from 1932 or 1934. I think it's a great film. One book that is also just almost impossible, but I really love Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I love The Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. Just so many things, actually. But let's leave it at that for now.